It's my sincere hope that in producing this series, I can make a difference to just one journey of a parent or carer, a little less lonely. I want to ease their shock, pain, anger and confusion. Remember these words, "Comparison is the thief of joy," by Theodore Roosevelt. Imprint it on your brain and never let it be far from your thoughts. I was completely crushed by my son's formal diagnosis of non-verbal severe autism on July 20, 2010. I also had Patrick, who was only 4 months old when my journey began. In retrospect, my story could have been so different, but I did what I did because it was all I could do at the time, and that's okay. My story is not important today, except that it has given me the ability to be the person that I desperately needed when my child was diagnosed. This is the beginning of your adventure, your journey, your opportunity to take control of your child's future and make it the biggest and brightest you can.
Daniel was actually my first child that I've ever taught with autism, so it was a learning curve for me just as much as it was for you. From him it was more making him inclusive, but also making the other children understand as well, and making the parents understand the value of having him in our classroom.
Today, I'm here to speak with Marcus Wicker, who's Principal of Auburn South Primary School. We're here to talk about inclusiveness in mainstream education.
One thing I learned really quickly as a teacher was that there was no such thing as a normal class, that there were always so many different personalities, different needs for the kids, whether it be academic, behavioural, there might be children with disabilities or specialised learning needs. And so I learnt really quickly that you needed to take a very flexible and inclusive approach if you were to get the best out of a group of young people. Whether it's a child in the class who has autism or severe behaviour needs or an intellectual impairment or a medical condition, it's a gift of an opportunity to be able to work with them and their families to give them the best possible start through their education, which is a right for all kids. And I'm proud that we're able to be part of that. The opportunity for your community, for all members of the community to feel really connected through their local school, it's too important to let that slip by. And yeah, it can be challenging work because we're all always put in positions where we feel like we don't have the expertise or we don't know enough. But just by being open to the possibilities, that can be enough. And it's okay to learn alongside the children, okay to learn alongside the families, and to get it wrong sometimes.
From with Daniel, I've learned much more about explaining the reasons kids with autism do what they do. And they might be non-verbal, but you can watch for body language and you can include them in that way. We've had experience of children having their meltdowns in the kinder and the other kids just looking at them like, why? And then so my opportunity for that was to explain to the kids the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum. I've learnt a lot through a company called Learning for Life. Then they do the ABA therapy training, and that's been an inspiration for me because I've changed the way I've taught all my children.
So we meet at a shopping centre with Daniel and one of his carers every week. And our routine is we go shopping at Coles. So he has his shopping list. Usually he asks me for a scrapbook that I always have with me. Today I was talking to his carer about what we were going to do, and he came around back and snuck it out of my bag. So we go shopping. He's become very expert at crossing off his list, asking me if he doesn't have one, asking me for a pen with prompting. So he has to ask for it, whether he wants a pen or a pencil or a texter, and then he proceeds to do his shopping.
Any time you do something you think is a little challenging, invariably it feels good at the end because you've stretched yourself and you've learnt a little bit more. I will say, working with children with autism, I think we learn an enormous amount from these children. You know, I'm a parent of 3 kids, and if I'm ever struggling as a parent, I think, if my child was autistic, what would I do differently as a parent? And I'm a better parent if I think like that. I'm more patient. I might give them some think time. I might pre-warn them if we're going to change a plan. You know, those things that we think about more often with children on the spectrum, we can all learn from that.
Today we're going to meet Sarah, who has an adult daughter on the spectrum called Beth.
Well, my decision to send Beth to mainstream primary school was based on the fact that we had been to Irabina, and which is an early intervention program, and she quite liked going there, but she really liked going to mainstream kindergarten much more. And so I thought to myself, probably wrongly, that putting her with kids that were more normal would make her more normal. But it was actually the opposite. Like, she really enjoyed being at mainstream primary school, but as she got older, the gap between them widened. When you used to have the whole class invited to birthday parties, that sort of stops about grade 4. They're a little bit cliquey, and she wasn't really in a clique. She had some really nice friends that looked after her, but they also wanted to play with their other friends. And so when it came to, she's quite vulnerable. So if she wasn't aided, she would all of a sudden do things like lift up her top or start swearing because obviously someone had said, hey, best try this, because she was usually with somebody. So they would see that, they would stop that. So we looked at special school for high school, but where it was good in a sense, she just didn't enjoy it because she doesn't actually like being around people with disabilities. And I don't know whether she considers it an insult. I don't know why. Almost like I'm saying, you're the same as all these people. Not that that's a bad thing at all, but she just didn't like it. So she didn't enjoy high school. And I sort of half wished that I had tried to send her to mainstream high school, but I was worried about things like, here, have this lolly, and it would be some sort of drug. Or a boy saying, if you do this for me, I'll be your boyfriend. So I decided not to send her to mainstream high school. So I think it's a very personal thing. Some people have done it the other way and they've been very happy. Beth just wasn't. So we're sort of still at that in-between stage where she doesn't really have any friends for that very reason, because she doesn't like the people that she has to be with because she can't be in a mainstream job, but she doesn't really like other people with disabilities, so she doesn't really have any friends.
I was that kid that was a little bit different to all of my peers, really struggled in class, and certainly struggled with speech and language, and coordination was definitely an easy target for bullying and things, which still goes on. And so fast forward, yes, I just decided to dig up all the things that I had been going through as a young child on the spectrum when I was diagnosed in the sort of around mid-90s, when autism was about 1 in about 2,500. That was the ratio then, so it was really not a great deal, but there was just starting to get a bit more research and knowledge about autism, and the term then Asperger's, which I still use today, but that's definitely all different now. And so really going back to the basics, and movement, and how to use the body, and the repetition and the consistency of, basic floor-based exercises. And I didn't always enjoy it, but my parents, and particularly my mother, was very strict on what she was told I needed to do, and so following that routine. And of course, the teachers at school saw a massive change. Oh, his behaviour's improved, he can, interact more with the other students, he's not doing as much of the inappropriate behaviours.
We need to present information in different ways. Sometimes it's visual, sometimes we need to just rephrase it in different ways. We might need to do a social story. So we become better at our work and become better as educators if we think about what we can learn from kids with autism.
It's certainly brought a lot of challenges, but it has also brought so much joy and taken me, you know, down a completely different path. Like the schools and the people I've met through the schools, like everything about my life now, except for family and friends, is different because of Beth. And it's enriching, it's lovely. And it's made me appreciate everything. And when my other kids were young, all the things that they did that Beth didn't do was amazing. I just think, wow. So every milestone that she does, like everything, like her getting her ears pierced after having fear of needles for years and years and years, was amazing. So it's really enriching, even though it's really difficult at times. It's a really enriching life because I've got this beautiful girl that teaches me so much.
Angus, my eldest, is Daniel's friend and he's 15. He was born with Down syndrome, so we had no clue. So this baby arrives and within, I think, a minute, the doctor was saying, we're seeing signs that something's not quite right. Then he was diagnosed with autism. That was even harder because, and I've talked to a number of parents about this and we've talked about this, getting the diagnosis of autism is really hard and it's really expensive, and this was pre-NDIS. The single most important thing for me, and not to take away from speech therapy or any of the other therapies, but really was finding that tribe of people who could support you in the normal community. So like you, I had an amazing kindergarten director. She treated Angus like he was her own. She loved my children in the same way she loved her own child. That made such a big difference. And, you know, we're talking now 10 years ago, but that was incredible to actually have someone who said, this is just a little person who needs to be as included as any other little person. And ABA was never going to work for Angus because he just wouldn't do it. It was the same with speech. He was just not interested. And so if I'd been able to say to myself, okay, they're talking about all the therapies, but actually the biggest difference is actually getting this kid to kindy and getting him engaged with other kids. And then I fast forward to now, and the pandemic for all of us has been super tough. And I think, Jo, you talked about this. For Angus, it's been like a godsend. He had these three amazing carers, and I know Daniel shares some of those carers.
Wendy knows them.
But the girls arrive, and I cannot tell you what a difference it has made to his life. So he is nonverbal, but he gets a shopping list together. The girls take him shopping. He buys the vegetables. He comes home and he chops up the vegetables, and he's prepared something for the family.
In Australia, we are really blessed to have access to the NDIS scheme, and I would say to parents that you are not alone. You can create a team of people that will love and support you, because we want to help children or adults live a normal life like anybody else can in Australia. And having such a scheme like this allows us to get all the right people together to build that team, and it's tailored to each individual. And I think that's a real key message for people to know, that there is just so much help out there. You'll get financial support, you'll get love, you'll get help, you get the right people, and a child can still live a normal life with autism, and the parents can still be proud of loving their child and sharing what that family can achieve together.
It's an amazing feeling. I just absolutely love seeing him learn new things from scratch, because he had no idea what he was up for today. Seeing him interact with a group of people and follow instructions just excites me so much. My heart is so full. I can't even put into words how beautiful this actual scene is.